Ladies and gentlemen, Tyrese Maxey has officially arrived on the national stage. The Sixers guard, after a little bit of a slow start to the season, has broken out into the player we know him to be and is receiving the necessary attention for it. I'm going to break down how, for the second time this season, Tyrese Maxey has officially been named NBA Player of the Week for the Eastern Conference. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander earning the honors in the West, but Maxey in the 3 games this week is averaging 32.3 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, and 8.7 assists. The Sixers a perfect 3-0. Also add he's averaging 2.7 steals per game across these past 3 games here. So I know it is a small sample size. We are worried about the bigger picture here, but I love that Maxey is getting this type of national recognition, and deservingly so. I think there are some real conversations that we should begin to have about the hierarchy of this team and how these pieces of the puzzle will fit moving forward. But let's stay with Maxey for now. For starters, I do want to highlight the steals and the defensive side of the ball. Shout out to Justin Russo for this tweet here. This is a Clippers guy that follows the Clippers pretty closely, and he tweets, Chris Dunn notched a steal in tonight's first quarter, putting him at 21 consecutive games with a steal. Tyrese Maxey with 24 has the only longer active streak in the NBA. Dunn's 21 straight games are the first time an LA Clippers player has done that since Chris Paul. But obviously the Tyrese Maxey side of things is what I was more interested in. Did go and fact check that myself. Not only has Tyrese Maxey had at least one steal in every game this season, he's averaging a career high 2.0 points per game. And you got to go back to until last season, where he had 2 steals in the final game of last year in the regular season, to obviously for this streak to reach where it's at 24 games. But it is not just the defensive side of the ball. I do think that is a huge storyline with Maxey, that you can no longer pick on him as a defender. He is a guy who competes on that side of the floor. I think he's done a much better job sticking with opponents, funneling them into Joel Embiid in a better way, and really just getting his hands in a way that I did not think was fully possible based on his skill set and his frame here. But he's finding a way to make it happen and creating some results for the Sixers team. Now, to look at the full view over the past 13 games here, look at Tyrese Maxey's stats, man. 27.2 points per game, 6.7 assists, and 4.1 rebounds. But the crazy part about it is it does not feel unsustainable. In fact, he can be even better, as he's only shooting 43, 37, and 81% splits. For reference, last season he shot 45% from the field, 37% from 3, and 87% from the free throw line there. Now, to get into his full stats for the season, they're now up to 26.0 points per game, 3.7 rebounds, 5.4 assists. His three-point percentage up to 33.9%. That's something I still expect to continue climbing. 42% from the field. I think that continues to increase as well. We have seen a little bit of a shooting slump to start out the year. I think you can pretty directly see the correlation when he's sharing the floor with Joel Embiid to when he's not, for what those kind of percentages look like. Every shot gets a little tougher without the superstar that everything is built around, and that is a conversation I'm going to dig into a little bit. Yes, Joel Embiid, when he's at his best, is the best player on this team. But how often are we going to get that moving forward? And are we sure that Tyrese Maxey does not deserve to be a little bit higher in the pecking order? Now, to acknowledge what Joel has brought to the table this year, these are still incredible numbers by your average player standards, but well below what we expect for Joel Embiid. And so far this season, the 30-year-old averaging 22.4 points per game, just 6.8 rebounds, 3.9 assists there, and still some uncharacteristic shooting splits, 43.6% from the field, 28.6% from 3. He is a 34% career three-point shooter, and I would expect that field goal percentage to get at least close to 50% by the time the season-long sample size is over here. But what I am seeing, and I think particularly in late game situations, which is really intriguing to me, Tyrese Maxey is the man with the ball in his hands. Now, I think there's some straight-up basketball reasons for that, and what I mean by that is it's a lot easier to generate shots as a guard. That as great as Joel Embiid is, and how blessed the Sixers have been for that man to be, the stabilizing force of the franchise, there just are some inherent difficulties to building around a big man in today's NBA. It's a guard and wing-oriented league, and yes, it's been nice to see a little bit of swing back with obviously Nikola Jokic in the mix, Giannis, depending on what you want to declare him positionally, that there has been a resurgence in big man talent. There's no doubt about it. When you talk about just going and getting a bucket at the end of the game, who are the guys you think of? It is guards, it is wings, it's perimeter-oriented players, and Tyrese Maxey very much fitting that bill. Now, one of the things that's incredibly encouraging to me that I'm excited to watch him to continue build off this here is there is this inherent randomness to the way that Tyrese Maxey plays that I think is very beneficial in that situation. To compare him to James Harden, and I think that is a comparison that you can see the influence in Maxey's game. Some of these step backs, some of the ways that he gets to his move or leads players with passes, it is very cool that you can see the direct impact that James Harden made on Maxey's development, and that is why you bring in players. Shout out to Maxey for being a sponge and taking the lessons that he could take there. But one of the things that I think is interesting when comparing that when it was James Harden, you knew exactly what he was doing. Now, that doesn't mean that you could stop it, that he is so incredibly great at the things that he's good at, but there were limited options for those, that you knew you were either getting to the step back three, he could find a beat on the pocket pass, he was running the pick and roll. There was never a really mid-range game, even though we hammered it home, and there was a little bit of growth in there. He wasn't going to take catch and shoot threes. The point being, there was the box of options that you knew was the case with James Harden. With Tyrese Maxey, it feels like that box is endless here. He can take guys off the dribble. He can go up and dunk it, which he has been doing far more regularly lately, and pointing that online as he posted this on Instagram with the caption, "I've been getting on that rim lately." Love it, and he absolutely has. But yes, Maxey's capable of going up and dunking it himself. The three-point percentage going back to increasing. I will remind you guys once again that he's led the entire NBA in three-point percentage twice already in his young career. And in between game, too, there is the mid-range. There is the floater that we're seeing a little bit of that returning to his shot diet there. You just can do a lot more. On ball, off ball, have him flying around screens, running off pin downs. There's a lot more options that you have when Tyrese Maxey is being that guy. And I think when you do kind of put in the context of this Sixers team, you obviously can't win or lose with just one player. It takes a team. And I think how this Sixers team is really designed is for the trio of Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid to be enough. If that means Maxey's biting up a little bit, larger slice of the pie here, it is what it is. And to acknowledge Paul George a little bit here, I do expect more than what we've seen to this point. I'm not going to be the guy that is super anti-Paul George, at least at this point, until we have more reason for that to be the case. But to dive into his stats for this year, 15.8 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 2.5 turnovers. Would like to see that down a little bit. And then the shooting splits are really the biggest concern. 40.4% from the field, 31.4% from three, just 15% on corner threes. Those just aren't good enough there. Now, Paul George has been awesome defensively. He's had his hands everywhere, had 5 steals the other night. He's still making a positive impact on this Sixers team, but he's certainly well shy of being that max player that they thought could get them over the edge. Now, granted, it hasn't been the easiest path. Obviously, there's been a ton of moving parts within the Sixers team. Joel has been hurt in and out of the lineup. Paul George himself has had the 2 knee bone bruises that he has battled. Maxey battled a hamstring injury. I will wait until we have more of a sample size of these guys playing together. I'm recording this before the Jazz game at 10 o'clock, or the Trailblazers game, 10 o'clock tip for this, so I want to get in a couple videos while I was waiting for things to go down here. But we have not seen much of them on the floor together. Assuming things go according to plan against the Trailblazers tonight, that will be the 5th game that these guys have started and finished together, the trio of them. So I'm not ready to come down on Paul George entirely too hard yet, but certainly something that I'm starting to watch with a little bit closer of an eye, that I do need to see some market improvement that has been the case thus far. But to swing it back to Tyrese Maxey, if that means that 24-year-old Tyrese Maxey is leading the charge with the 9-time All-Star wing and the former MVP big man, I'm okay with it. If that is what it is, then that is what it is there. You absolutely can roll with it. And I do still think there are things that can grow in both Tyrese Maxey individually and with this team. And I thought there was a great quote that he had following the previous win, the one over the Jazz here, when he was asked on the broadcast by Kate Scott. And she asked, what did change since Thanksgiving and this team has started to turn things around? And Maxey's quote was, I think the energy, the demeanor, the suddenness, the togetherness has changed. Guys really believe in each other. Guys are trusting each other and trusting the coaching staff. And he continued to elaborate on that, speaking about the buy-in defensively, how much this team is really kind of figuring out how they need to play together, the way stylistically that things need to work. And really, it is starting to come together. That you do see the buy-in defensively. You do see the way that they are forcing turnovers at a ridiculous rate. And again, as critical as I can be of Paul George on the offensive end, his impact is all over the place. That it feels like there are stretches where his hands are absolutely everywhere on the defensive end. And that is an area that I did not have the highest of expectations. That there was a point in time where Paul George was a straight-up demon on the defensive side of the ball. I thought those years were gone, but it looks like he still has a little left in the tank here. But obviously, we will see how that plays out until the season continues on. For the time being, I do want to celebrate Tyrese Maxey celebrating and getting the recognition that he deserves. This is once again his 2nd Player of the Week award of the season, and I don't think it is going to be his last year. It would not shock me if this season continues and we do not see some improvement from the health level of Joel Embiid or the movement level of Joel Embiid, that we're starting to talk about maybe it is the franchise's team moving forward. I'm still going to pump the brakes and not get there quite yet, but could not be more excited by the version of Tyrese Maxey that we're seeing him grow grow into as a basketball player. So shout out to Tyrese for being the beacon of hope that this organization truly does need. Playing with a little more positivity lately. We see the smiles back, and these are all things that I love. So shout out to him. Shout out to the Sixers team for giving us a little bit of spark, a little bit of fight, and a little bit reason to believe once again. And shout out to you guys for tuning in this video here. So appreciate each and every one of you guys. As always, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.